This year, I'm very proud to have Dharmesh Shah be our guest speaker. Dharmesh Shah doesn't want a big introduction, so I won't give him a big one. But I have to say, he graduated from 2006 from MIT Sloan Fellows Program. He's a coder. He's a blogger with over 220 followers. He's renowned around the world. They say, oh, you know Dharmesh Shah. We love his stuff. He's a best-selling author. He's an angel investor. He's a dad. He's an entrepreneur. And if you go to his LinkedIn site, it says, career startup guy. He's going to tell you his story, and hopefully all you students out there will see the power that MIT has and how you can be an entrepreneur and take control of your own destiny. My great pleasure, the next, Dharmesh Shah. Dharmesh? Hopefully that wasn't too long.
All right. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, MIT. I did ask Bill not to have a long extended intro because I'm socially awkward in front of large groups of humans, and I'm specifically awkward when I'm complimented in front of large groups of humans. So I'm Dharmesh. Hi. Wow, this great big group. I'm going to walk you through a quick story. Once upon a time, back in 2006, I co-founded a company called HubSpot. How many people have heard of HubSpot? All right, a lot of you. Okay, great. What's interesting, why it's notable for you folks here, is HubSpot was started in the hallowed halls of MIT. My co-founder and I were both grad students here in course 15. For those of you on the internet, that's the business school, just in case you didn't know. And so we met here, and we used every class and every opportunity. Anytime a paper was due or had to be written, we used that class to kind of further HubSpot. So it was kind of started at MIT in grad school, and then officially launched the day that I graduated, because I had promised myself that I wouldn't do a startup at least while I'm in school, and it worked out okay. And so I'll have to share this one story with you. This is the one I'm most proud of in terms of the papers that I wrote, because it's not because it was the best paper, but it was the largest stretch in terms of what the theme of the class was and the topic of our paper. Because remember, we were using HubSpot for all of this stuff. And the class was called Organizational Behavior. For those of you not in business school, that's a thing, by the way, just so you know. So it's a class called Organizational Behavior, and we had to write a paper. So my co-founder and I got together, and the title of our paper was How to Divide Shares in an Early Stage Startup. Awfully useful, by the way. Anyway, so I'm proud of that. This is a shot of us. It was not photoshopped. We actually got away from our desks and took this. I'm the one in the middle. That's me about 10 years and 20 pounds ago. And the only reason we actually had this photo taken is our head of marketing at the time said, oh, we're like submitting our startup to this kind of magazine profile-y thing, and our odds of getting into the magazine will go up if we can submit a photo. So we did, and we did. It was awesome. So HubSpot went public about 2 years ago. That's the gratuitous shot, required shot of like the ringing of the New York Stock Exchange bell. Some people that see this photo ask me, Dharmesh, why aren't you more excited? This was a big milestone. That's me excited. That's just so you know. So this is not about HubSpot at all. That's about as much braggy stuff as I want to do around HubSpot. This is about the MIT. Congrats to the MIT startup teams. I think they're generally over this way and back that way. I've had a chance to get a sneak peek at some of the ideas and the startups themselves, and it's humbling how far, how much better they are generally, how far they've come, and you'll see once you see the startup pitches later today, and I'm not saying this gratuitously, their presentations will be better than any startup pitch I've ever given in my professional career. I'm serious. They're really good. All right, so my purpose here, I've got about 11 minutes left, is I'm going to try and increase the aggregate odds of success for startups for everyone in this room here. That's my ambitious goal. And so the question number one is, okay, what's the critical prerequisite to doing a successful startup? And the answer is you have to start, right? That's the first thing. And we laugh, but the reality is there are so many would-be entrepreneurs that kind of sit on the sidelines that have this kind of inkling, have this itch, but there are a number of reasons why they don't actually kind of make the leap and get started. One of the most common is that they don't think they have a good idea. They think their idea sucks. And they're right, because most startup ideas are actually not all that good, especially if you ask 5 people, you'll get 30 reasons as to why the idea not good. But one thing I've learned across 20 plus years of startup experience is that often the best ideas you'll have, the one that actually ends up working out, will not be the idea you started with, and that idea will not come to you until after you start. So it's kind of a recursive thing. You can't sit on the sidelines waiting for the good idea to come to you that you kind of analyze, and it's like, oh, now I have a really good idea, good enough to start, because the actual good enough idea won't happen until after you start, so you have to start first. That's the prerequisite. Mistake lots of entrepreneurs make is they have the idea, and then they're like completely enamored with the idea. It's like, oh, I've got a really good one, and they go into stealth mode. And I think stealth mode is for fighter jets, not startups. And it's a very counterproductive thing because, and the reason entrepreneurs go into stealth mode, the provided reason is, well, I don't want someone to go steal this idea. That's the fundamental kind of motivation. And I'm going to argue if P1 is the probability that someone might steal your idea if you share it, and if P2 is the probability of your startup withering because you didn't talk to anybody, withering in obscurity, P2 is way bigger, way bigger. That's a technical term than P1. So what you should be doing, as the teams here are doing now, is like once you have the idea, tell as many people as possible. Blog about it, write about it, talk to your family, talk to your friends, because you'll get that critical feedback back. You can't go off into the rabbit hole for years at a time and then emerge and say, I've got this thing. This doesn't work that way. It's suboptimal. Yes, there's like vanishingly small chance that someone will steal your idea, but I've never seen that happen in all my years where like, oh, wow, they just, yeah. This is going to sound a little bit trite and cliched because it is, but I think it's one of the most important points. If you're going to solve for anything as an entrepreneur, try and get something out there, launch it as fast and as early as you possibly can. And launching it means someone that didn't give birth to you, didn't date you, and you haven't had a beer with actually got to use the product or look at it, right? It's like, so your mom doesn't count, your girlfriend doesn't count, that doesn't, anyway. And once you get it out there, try to get that feedback and try to reduce the cycle time. There's a high correlation between how tight you can make that feedback loop and do something about it and your odds of success. So if you can do that, it's just like, oh, we went from putting something out there once every 3 months to once every 3 weeks to once every 3 days. The tighter you can make that loop and learn, your chances of success go up. Another one, in terms of increasing your odds of success, I get this question all the time. Do I really need a co-founder? It's a nuanced issue. I'm going to give you a non-nuanced answer to start. The answer is yes, you need a co-founder. And if you happen to think, well, I don't really need a co-founder, then you really need a co-founder. You are precisely the person that needs a co-founder. And the issue, like the absence of a co-founder, leads to a couple of issues. One is you're sending the signal to the world. It's like you couldn't convince one other person on the planet to kind of join you on this quest, essentially. So that's kind of problem number one. And problem number two is startups are a very, very lonely business. Anyone that's done that knows, right? You have the proverbial roller coaster, really, really high highs, very, very low lows, often in the same day, right? And there's just a crap ton of stuff to do. It's nice to have like a partner or partners kind of in the journey. Your odds do go up, and this has been demonstrated. I could cite studies and stuff, but I don't do that kind of thing. All right, in terms of finding a co-founder, the ideal one, and this is tricky, because often you find co-founders out of convenience because you were classmates, you were siblings, you kind of know them. It's like, oh, they're pretty smart, they're not schmucky, I know they're not a serial murderer, I'll start a company with them, right? That's awesome. What you really want is you want someone that you have kind of a common view on the world, common set of values, that you think about things in a similar way, but you have different skill sets. So you're not good at the same things, so you don't have like 100% or 90% overlap. So that's what you're looking for, someone where you have shared vision, shared values, but complementary skills. This is my co-founder, met him here at MIT. One of the best things MIT's done for me is help me meet this guy. MIT's been done a lot, by the way, it's not just this guy, but he's awesome. He came up through the sales and marketing kind of background. I'm an engineer, developer at heart, still am. So that was a nice kind of matchup, and I think that contributed to our modest success. The other thing that drives your probability of success is your overall ability to attract amazing people. In fact, like the founder's job, this is a hard thing, is to take exceptionally smart, hyper-rational people and somehow convince them to do this irrational thing, which is join you in this startup. That's like a developed talent and developed skill. That's what you have to do. And I'll tell you the secret to how you go about doing this if you're a founder. Number one, as it turns out, there are a subset of the human population that has this genetic flaw that compels them and draws them towards startups, even though it makes absolutely no sense. They can't help it. They just have that gene. Many of you are in this room right now, so it's, yes, it's, So once you learn how to identify those people, like half the battle is already, they can't help themselves. You just have to kind of get the opportunity out there and get good at selling and good at convincing. And the other thing you have to do is the one trump card you have as a startup, you're not going to be able to pay them much, if anything, right? That's not the thing. You're not going to give them a brand. It's not going to look great on their resume. The thing you can give them is the ability to learn more than they would have any other place, right? Because it's like a small team growing really, really fast. And you want to give them crazy, ambitious, almost impossible goals. People with a genetic flaw that are super good really love the challenge. Amazing people don't like average goals. So that's the key. Identify that gene, and then give them something to kind of work towards. I'm going to wind down. So I've been at startups for a long, long time, over 20 years. I've started 3 companies. 2 of them, by some definition, would be considered successful, HubSpot being the latest one. I've made over 64 angel investments. And through the blog, and I have a little more than 220 followers. It's 220,000, but just not a big deal. It's okay, Bill. And so I've spent most of my kind of professional career in and around startups. When I had to write an MIT graduate paper, it was on startups. It was like I'm obsessed with startups and I have been for a very long time. So I've learned a lot from entrepreneurs, and I'm going to leave you with this one lesson. I think that's the most important one. And so I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs, and I've heard lots of regrets. Regrets around which co-founder they picked, which market they picked, whether they should or should not have raised funding, which venture capital firm they raised funding from. I've heard lots of regrets. I've seen successes, I've seen failures, but I've never heard a single entrepreneur state that they actually regret, even the ones that fail, that regret actually having taken the leap of faith and taken their shot. So my advice to you is if you have this inkling, let's say you're a student right now, these are ideal circumstances. You have access to resources you will likely not have later on. Right now, your risk tolerance is probably relatively high, and I can almost assure you, I'll buy you a beer if it turns out that you took my advice and started a company and then you regretted it. Probably beer's not enough, but anyway, odds are relatively low. You will not regret it, you should do it. So keep calm, build on. Thanks for your time, this is always fun.